first up, I don't need you to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your story. So I think it's always a really good way to start is to understand a little bit about how you got to today and your role at Tangent.
Yeah, my story at Tangent started about 10 years ago, which I think is pretty unusual for people to stay in agencies for that long. I always get really reaction because people change often when it comes to agency land. But when I think about my journey at Tangent, I don't see it as working at the same agency for 10 years. It's changed massively in that time. I always say I always had the same kind of key card going into the same office, but I feel like I've worked at 2 or 3 different agencies in that time. So it's always been really, really fresh for me. And I think that has happened. I think the turning point was actually going on maternity leave. Stayed at the agency for 2 years, went and had a baby, came back. All of the people I used to work with had suddenly disappeared, or at least most of them did. A whole new bunch of people to kind of start working with, a whole different ambition as well for the agency. And that's when it kind of really started for me. I think the way in which I was used to work pre-baby was very different to post-baby. I think I became far more focused and just kind of knew what I wanted to do and became this person that people could really rely on because I had that focus.
It's funny, isn't it, that when you exit a business to have a baby and you come back, it does kind of feel like you've got to start again. Like you've got to relearn everything in a way.
You do and you don't. I think I just changed in the way that I approach things. I didn't have time to mess about. I had other things to do as well that kind of came into my life. And so, yeah, I just all of a sudden had this drive and this focus and this kind of attention that just went to work because I knew that once work was done, I had a whole other job to do as well. So for me, it was actually a really kind of positive change. And now when I see women going off, having children, I come back and think they'll probably be even a better teammate because of it when they come back, because that's kind of what happened to me, and I kind of think that that's kind of what you need to do in some instances.
Yeah, so true. I feel it makes you a better, almost like project manager. Like you're so planned as a mum, a parent in general, but I think as mums, we take so much on. We've got so much to plan. So when you come back after having a baby, you're like, yes, I know how to do this. I'm planned so many weeks, months ahead. It definitely changes us.
Yeah. And I think when I came back, because so much had changed, I got this opportunity really to, I guess, come up the ranks, because a lot of the people that were there were new, and I was almost of the old guard just because I was there pre-baby basically. Yeah. But and I think that opportunity came, and I took it, and I became that person that people could come to, that came and asked my opinion about things, and I got an opportunity to just do more and take on more, and that's how I really kind of rose up the ranks and eventually sat on the leadership team, and I've been doing so for about 6 years now.
Wow, I mean that is something in itself. The fact that now people are coming to you, you've inspired all these other women. But can I ask you something?
Yes.
About who's inspired you? So obviously you've had a fantastic career at Tangent, and you guys are, it seems like you're buying every other. I mean, you've bought Social Chain recently. You've got Brave Bison in the group. There's been there's been so much change. But there must have been some people along your career that have really helped inspire you to grow your career.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say that it's just women.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
And do you know what? We were talking about this. It shouldn't just be women. I think and it's great. We've got at least 3 guys in the audience. Well, hey. But it shouldn't just be women. You don't have to only, as a woman, be inspired by other women. So yeah, who's inspired you?
There is one woman. Okay. When I was working at FCB, her name is Katie. She's a friend of mine today.
I love her.
I love her too.
Oh
She's
God,
amazing. Yeah. And I think when I worked there, she, again, was somebody who became managing partner really at a young age at what was Draft FCB at the time. And she, again, just had that drive. She was connected to so many people, always kind of really engaging, extremely funny, but works really, really hard as well. And yeah, today she's a friend, but I still, kind of just admire her career path. She became MD, now CEO of FCB London, and she's just always kind of going for it, but always also has time for that personal connection with people, which I think is great, and that's kind of just part of her personality, and that's never really changed. So I think for me, she's one that I kind of hold dear to my heart. But yeah, I think in terms of like who else inspired me, I think somebody was saying this earlier, but you need to surround yourself with people that you love working with. So it doesn't necessarily have to be people that are in more senior positions than you. I think if you're surrounded by people who are challenging you, who are supporting you, who are helping you when you're not kind of sure what you're doing, I think that becomes a very kind of safe space, a place where you really think that you can thrive, where you can try different things and fail if you need to. And I think that for me, I'm more interested in kind of finding your group, your peers, than kind of relying on one kind of person who you admire and try to emulate.
Do you know what? It's such a good point though, and Katie does really emulate this. Is she's such a human. She's so real. She's so empathetic. She's so helpful, and I do think that's something that us women sometimes. I don't ever want to make like badmouth men, but I do think us women, in general, in the workplace, we're very nurturing. Maybe it is about being a mum or whatever it might be, but I do think we're really good at helping lift up our compadres and people that we work with, and Katie's a really good example of that.
Yeah,
I love
absolutely,
her energy.
absolutely. And you see her doing that all the time within the business that she works in.
Yeah, I know her. I don't even know how I met Katie, but anyway, we've not worked together, but we nearly have. So yeah, she's brilliant. My next question is more around challenges that you faced. So do you feel like there's been any specific challenges that you've had to overcome specifically because you're a woman?
I think maybe like how you interpret certain situations sometimes. I've been in situations where I felt that people were talking to me very differently than some of my colleagues who are perhaps male. And that's always kind of been a bit difficult, because you kind of think, is this in my head, or is this really something there? Is it normal, or am I seeing something that nobody else is seeing? And I think when I think about the people that I work with, a lot of the people who support me are other men. And so I've been able to kind of go to them and said, did you see what I saw? And, could we talk about this? And I think there are some instances where they said, no, what you saw was right. It's not in your head. And I think that's when you realize that, okay, well, how do I change this dynamic? How do I not let that happen again? Or how do I call it out and in the right way? And knowing that you'll have the right support around you to be able to validate what it is that you are thinking.
So true. I'm going to ask you a tough question now, so apologies.
Here we go.
But how do you call it out in the right way? Because I've been there, and it feels so awkward sometimes. You don't know, like, you can hear it, but you don't know how to approach it. So have you got any good examples of how we can call it out?
I think I don't call it out in the moment.
No, yeah, good idea.
It is about kind of just stepping away, like really thinking back about the situation, assessing it, trying to make sense of it. And then if you do really believe that that is something that shouldn't have happened or shouldn't have been said, then I've had that conversation in private. And I won't say it was easy. I've been in situations where your voice starts to crackle and you're kind of wondering how am I going to say this? Am I going to say the wrong words? Is it going to come out in a wrong way? But I think once you've done it, you kind of got it off your chest, you've said it, and it has to be acknowledged in some way. And so, yeah, it's never easy.
No,
it's never easy.
Really
and you need to know when to pick your battles as well.
Totally. In fact, I have a good example of that with my team, where a client of ours kept referring to the team as the girls and had literally didn't mean it to be rude at all. But one of the team was becoming continually offended by it. So she called it out with him, and then he even called me and was like, look, I'm really sorry, I hadn't even thought. But it's those little tiny things that happen. I don't know, would you in a work environment refer to someone as the boys? And I even had it happen, a friend of mine at another conference recently, she's she used to be brand manager for eBay. She's now set up her own consultancy. She was at an event, and one of the kind of owners of the event, like the guy who put on the event, called, I know this young girl, and she's in her 40s, and she called me, she was like, I found it really offensive. Like, if you need help with branding, I know this young girl that can help you. And she was like, I really didn't feel like that. And she did approach him. So I do think we're getting better. And I don't think people, even us women, do it sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't think it's not coming from a bad place.
No, it's not. And I don't think, and yeah, you shouldn't always take offense at everything. You know, some things are just said in jest, some things are jokes. But yeah, you know, there needs to be a sense of like ease with the people that you're around. But I think if it starts nagging a bit too much, then there might be something there that you need to talk about.
Yeah, totally. So we're going on the right track. I feel like you're easily segueing me into each part of this conversation. What can employers do to, I guess, make the workplace fairer in general?
I think they can do a lot. I think for me, it would probably be to have really transparent career paths for everyone. If you know exactly what you need to be doing to get up and up, or what is expected from you to be able to grow in your career, that should be visible to everyone.
Yeah.
And I think you also need to have really transparent ways in which you evaluate somebody's kind of performance and what that process kind of looks like. And so I think if you put that in place, automatically you're giving people more of a chance to be able to level up like anybody else in your company. So I think that's a really kind of good way of doing it. I think, you know, everybody's now looking at statistics within their businesses of, you know, how many women are sitting on leadership teams, how many women are kind of managing other people. And I think keeping an eye on that data is important as well, because it tells a real story. And so I think just making yourself aware of, you know, who you're hiring, what your processes are looking like, how do you engage people in the workforce, how do you allow them to grow, and how you're giving that opportunity to everyone is part of that whole cycle. And how you're kind of moderating that and making sure that you're doing everything you can to continue it.
Yeah, it's so hard. I was talking to someone earlier, what you're saying is making me think about often businesses, let's be honest, are run by men. So men are putting the policies in place, and are they thinking like a woman? Like, are they thinking, I don't know, you'll come back after having a baby and you need to go and pump milk, or like, rather than sitting in the toilet, should they be designing a little room that you could, you know, I think there is something in men running businesses you need to have those kind of female counterparts to understand the female point of view to make it fairer as well.
Yeah, but I think businesses are really getting better at that as well.
100%.
You know, I think there's a much bigger consciousness around this, and you know, certainly our new CEO who's joined is very much of, you know, wanting to make sure that women are well represented within the business. And you know, I think all of the men who also sit on the leadership team are very aware of this as well. So I think, you know, it's not their fault that they're men that they're in that position. Exactly. And I think, you know, they are, you know, trying at least to do the right thing and getting that female voice heard.
Yeah, I think that's it. It's about, you know, I don't know how a man thinks about stuff. A man doesn't necessarily know how I think about stuff. So it's about having that, I guess, you know, collaboration and those conversations.
Yeah.
With that, boardrooms and talking about leadership teams, do you think there's still work to be done to make, I don't know, the boardroom environment a safer space for women and let us feel empowered to speak in the boardroom?
I guess it depends, right? For every kind of team. The team I've been working with, we've been working together for nearly 5 years now, so we know each other pretty well. We know what annoys one another, you know what buttons to push if something is not kind of going your way, and you know, whether that be a good thing or a bad thing. But I think, you know, that there is, I think if you bring women into the boardroom, then other women in the organization see that is also kind of possible for them. And I think that's just about visibility, seeing people like you in those positions. And I'm seeing a lot of the younger people within our business wanting to know how to get there, and are asking those questions and want to kind of know what they need to do to get to that. So I think a lot has changed with that, where, you know, these women who are in their 20s perhaps are kind of already thinking about what's my career path to be able to get to that, which I feel was probably not the case 15 years ago. And so, yeah, I think there's probably more opportunity and more will kind of come as time goes by.
Yeah, it's changing.
Yeah.
Definitely changing. I think one thing that well, certainly when we've worked with larger businesses, or I've been working within a much larger agency or larger business, is actually bringing those younger people into the conversation as well, like having them guest in the boardroom or come and present something so that their voice is heard, because actually it's a really important voice for us to hear.
Yeah, it is, but it's also, I think, they don't have to be in the boardroom to actually have something to say that is of value, and I think you can empower a lot of more junior people by giving them more responsibility, by giving them more opportunity, by, acknowledging or kind of, acknowledging that they can probably try and they might fail, but that's also okay. But I think you need to empower people to be able to do things on their own, or else you just become this bottleneck, and that just never really works for yourself, for the business, for the team. And so I think if you are able to empower women to do more, to take on more, to give them more responsibility, then they're getting and gaining the skills that they need to be able to kind of access that boardroom eventually.
Yeah, totally. I think more of that.
Yeah, and
it's good.
What I'm hearing is that they want more.
Yeah, they do. I think it's going to be really interesting watching, well, how things evolve over the next few years with Gen Z and Alpha. I think it's going to be a totally different board, totally different game. Everything's going to change.
Absolutely.
One last question. What can the industry do to help equal the balance?
I mean, I feel like a lot is being done already. Industry-wide, I don't know. I think, the big organizations have all of these policies, these plans, these mentorship programs. There's a lot that is being done, and depending on the size of your business, you can't necessarily do everything. I think just, understanding what you can do, no matter the size of your business, thinking about, the small steps that you can take to get to that, gender diversity, equality. You can have a small mentorship program within a small business. It doesn't have to be, a year-long program that people need to subscribe to. And I think that they're just making yourself accessible to be able to answer questions to people, I think just already makes a huge difference. But yeah, I mean, you can Google that, right? And you'll find like 20 ideas to make your workplace kind of more inclusive. And some things will be right for one business and others won't. So it's not just, there's no one-stop shop when it comes to that.
No, but yeah, again, mentorships work really.
It does, and it doesn't have to be so formal. I think what I'm hearing is that people want to be able to speak to people outside of their direct line management, so they don't feel like they have to kind of do it with somebody that they have to report to in all other aspects of their lives. They want to be able to have those conversations outside of that. And so if you provide that safe environment for them to do it, then again, that you're giving them that support that they're looking for within the workplace, but not necessarily within the formal structures that you've set as a business.
Yeah, well, it's going back to what you said at the beginning, which is more about humanising it and just making it easier to have those conversations.
Yeah, making it comfortable for everyone.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Nadine, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Everyone, big hand for Nadine. Thank you so much for joining me.